Tommy Stone here with our next installment in the My Family Devotional series. We're to week 11, and today's video we're going to be talking about discipline and children. I grew up hearing the jokey statement about the 3 R's, the 3 things that you're looking for in education. Reading, being able to do that, right? It makes sense, it's important. Writing, which I didn't get as an R because it starts with a W, but anyway, and arithmetic. I think we left off something there too. But reading, writing, arithmetic, we get it. Those are some important things that they called the 3 R's when I was growing up for our kids. You know, parenting is difficult, and I feel like we need 3 R's there as well. And this chapter this week kind of focuses on 3 R's that are important. You know, parenting is difficult because you're balancing the wants of our children versus the needs of our children. And I think the writer of our devotional this week does a great job in that first day's study talking about from Psalm 78. The goal of parenting is not simply to take care of basic needs, though that's important, right? And we certainly think of that early on in parenting, taking care of food and clothing and some basic touch and some very fundamental things that are important to development. But there comes a time when children start pushing boundaries, start taking on more responsibility, where parenting becomes a lot more challenging. And a lot of these very important developmental stages are coming where parenting becomes very much about looking toward the goals, the ends that are in sight, not just surviving from day to day or week to week as a parent. What do we really want for our kids? Psalm 78 talks about the passing on of those very important things about God that we want to share with our kids, spiritual development that we hope is not only seen in our children, but in our children's children and generations to come. So I want to talk about the 3 R's that our writer points out this week. He doesn't necessarily do it as 3 R's, but we're going to look at it that way. First of all, restrictions. We learned very early on that we try to keep our kids safe, right? We restrict them from certain things because they don't yet have understanding about those things. So we keep those guardrails up, literal guardrails sometimes. We had at the top of our stairs a baby gate to keep our kids from tumbling down the stairs because they didn't have some basic understanding about what might happen if they try to take on those stairs. So restrictions, that's the first R. He calls them guardrails here. They're loving restrictions, right? The things that we try to put out there that are safe spaces, rules, and regulations and boundaries so that our kids can learn in a safe environment. We may have gates around our house so kids can play and have some freedom in a backyard or in our yard. Those guardrails are important. And those are things that we need to be laying out there. The things that we believe are important to keep our kids safe. And so as they began to push against those things, they know where our lines are. And they know a little bit of why we've constructed those guardrails, right? Well, the second R is relationship. And in the third lesson, today's lesson actually, from Deuteronomy 6, we're seeing, given a picture of what this looks like. as Moses emphasizes the commands of God, he wants parents to share those commands of God, but to do it in the context of a loving relationship. That just works best, right? In parenting too. Sure, you and I may grow up in rules and know very clearly what those rules are, but we take to those rules and we really abide by them, hopefully not simply out of fear of what's going to happen if we don't, but in the context of loving relationship. Here are the things that we want you to abide by in relationship. And yes, within relationship, there are rules. There are restrictions. But those are given because we care, because we love, because we want what's best for our children. So, restriction, in the sense of guardrails, in a loving relationship where it's not simply about rules. And then the third thing he mentions at the end of our week together is reliance, trust in God. We do the best that we can as parents, and we offer up the rest to our loving Father who gives guidance and direction. We pray that as we're sharing the things of God with our kids, that the faith that we have is passed on to them, not simply facts about the Bible and about relationship with God, but because we've walked through those things with them together, we hope and pray that as they take on life and make their own choices, that we've had some kind of good influence, pointed them in the right direction, so that they've got something of a foundation to build on. And they've got a trust and a faith in God. That even in seasons where that's tested, that they've got something to come back to again and again. A relationship with God. So I think it's important, and I want my girls to have the 3 R's as they're coming through school. I want them to be able to read. I want them to be able to have some basic writing skills. And I do want them to know the math they need to get through school, and certainly real world math to deal with the world out there. But I also want in our relationship with them the 3 R's that our writer talks about this week. I want those loving restrictions in place. Call them rules if you'd like. That keep our kids within the boundaries, and not just personal rules that I think are important, but rules that are based on what God has to say. Restrictions, relationship. I want our kids to know that we love them dearly for who they are, and that those things that we apply to their lives are important, and certainly we make mistakes in applying those rules and restrictions. But they're done in a way that seeks our kids' best. And then reliance on God. Can we ultimately trust the Lord, since we know we're not perfect parents, to see us through this time of life and to care for our kids? I hope that you're applying those 3 R's if you're a parent or a grandparent right now, and that that's been a blessing to you as you seek to balance the responsibilities and the blessings of parenting. I hope that's been a help to you this week as well, and an encouragement. We love you, and if we can pray for you, please let us know at the Red Bank Church of Christ what we can do to pray for you as struggling parents or grandparents, followers of God, people who are struggling to apply God's will in your life. God bless you this week.